Hello and welcome to Re-enthused. Today we are going to be discussing the Apple IIc. Portable computing had begun in the 1970s with luggable computers. These machines allowed you to take basically your entire desk from one location to another with a built-in monitor and screen. But these were expensive and also very heavy. What about if you just wanted to take the machine from one station to another without all of that extra money and weight? Well, in 1984, Apple thought they had you covered. Apple began when Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs introduced the Apple I into the world. They then got on to nail that difficult second album when the Apple II was released. But the Apple II was a fairly bulky machine, and so the decision was made to make a more portable version, and the IIc was born. The C standing for compact. It was designed with portability in mind, even to the extent of including a handle at the back, which we'll take a look at a little bit later. The IIc was released in 1994 and discontinued in 1988, although variations of it continued to be sold until 1990. In the end, the IIc did not manage to meet Apple's expected sales of 100,000 a month. In fact, the average was closer to 100,000 a year, even being outsold by the relatively unpopular PC Junior series, which was one of its competitors, of course. The IIc might look slightly toy-like, but it is a full Apple II, with a few changes made to fit the new casing. The PSU has been moved into a separate brick instead of being inside, and most of the expansion has been removed. There's no way to easily add expansion inside, although quite a few features were actually built in anyway that would have normally have been expansions on the IIc range, and there's also a port at the back to allow you to add expansions that way. In fact, the portability and the closed system approach, the model comes the closest to Jobs' desire for a more appliance-like computer. It would be fully realised, of course, in the Mac, which was released in the same year. This is probably part of the reason that the IIc was a bit of a flop. Not only did it have competition from other companies, it had competition from inside Apple itself. Aside from the Mac, which was at least a different range, the IIc didn't replace a machine, it just added to it as a portable device. This meant consumers had a choice between the expandable 2 range and the non-expandable C. Most chose the 2E instead. Well, let's take a little look at it now, and we'll probably open it up as well, take a look inside. And here we are with the IIc. Now, mine's a bit yellowed, which kind of makes a mockery of the fact that this is one of the first machines to use Apple's fairly iconic snow white design scheme. You can kind of see on some of the buttons and on the handle back here what it should have looked like. Look at that a bit closer in a minute. But yeah, it's a really nicely compact little machine. It's kind of pleasing, almost square shape, which is, I don't know what's pleasing, but it is. Some of those things I said were built in. You can kind of see one of the buttons here is a 80 and 40 column mode toggle, and that would have been an extra card on a normal 2 computer, but it's actually built in here, which is kind of useful for things like word processing and such like. Yeah, like a reset button, then you just switch the keyboard, and 2 lights, obviously, because the disk drive is built in. We have a disk drive light and a power light. So if we look at the back and we get this look at that, it is quite heavy, by the way, even though for its size it's quite heavy. Yeah, so here, as you can see, is the slightly whiter handle. It's a fairly sturdy handle. I don't know if I'd fully trust holding it because plastics get brittle. So even though this has got some nice solid metal bars holding it in place, yeah, I don't know still if I'd fully trust holding it by that. But anyway, yeah, so we have a serial here, which is used for several things like printers and such like. Communications modem port. The RGB display port, although it's slightly complex to get working. A composite port there. An external floppy drive port. Another serially style port there. And the big old power block and a nice green power switch. If we go to the side over here, that's the slightly less interesting side really. A headphone jack, which is definitely necessary because the sound is mostly generated internally, and the volume switch for the same. And on the other side is that big old 5¼ floppy drive, which is taking up quite a lot of space and is almost certainly adding quite a lot to the actual weight of the machine as well. Yeah, so it's a lovely looking machine, it really is, even yellowed like mine is. We can take a little look inside and you'll see just exactly how much space this 5¼ drive is taking up. So here we are, and as you can see, yeah, the 5.25-inch drive taking up the vast majority of the space there. So, I mean, the main chips really, they're visible. Now we've removed the keyboard, which plugs in with a nice little ribbon cable there. Down here, of course, the eponymous 6502 chip. You probably can't quite see that. Let's turn this around. Right, there we go. So, yeah, down here, the eponymous 6502 chip, obviously fairly iconic. And up here, we can see the 128K of RAM, which goes and continues underneath the casing for the 5.25-inch drive here. It's a fairly neatly laid out machine. Obviously, they were minimizing this stuff. A lot of chips have been condensed into one. The IWM chip, or was his drive chip, has been made into one chip and made simplified. So, because that obviously had been included on here, so you could run this 5.25-inch drive. And yeah, just a really neat little machine. I really like it. There's our speaker at the front there, just a tiny little thing, and just a nice dead center on the front. Quite a pleasing design. Right, let's put this back together, and then we'll try and boot games for it. We'll say try. They will be 5.25-inch discs, and you know, it's hit or miss if they work. See you in a bit. Okay, what we're starting with here isn't a game, it's the actual 2C introduction program, which Apple gave with the actual machine. And for the time, this was quite impressive. I quite like it. It's got a cuteness to it. The way it pretends to be typing on the keyboard to type all the stuff out, and scrolls up like a printer paper. It's interesting. Yeah, so this just kind of runs through some of the PR notes for the Apple IIc as it goes through. It's not much, but it's interesting to see at least. And here we are with Loadrunner. It's another personal favourite of mine. It's a nice, simple kind of single-screen collect-em-up game. So the idea is you run around collecting little box things on the ground, avoiding the bad guys, and you can dig holes to trap them in the ground. So here we go. We go here, and we climb this ladder. Here we are. No, that was bad. There we go. Yeah, you can't just dig a hole. There is a time to dig it. So if you try to do it when they're too close to you, you will be caught. Right, what are these guys going to do? I want these guys to... Oh, I ran into it. Yeah, it's like Pac-Man. So if you start moving in a direction, it will continue to move in that direction, which basically like performing a handbrake, a non-handbrake braking maneuver on a hill. So yeah, you have to kind of feather the controls. That's it. We wanted him to go over, but he didn't. That's fine. Should just have enough time to do that. Yep. There we go. As long as you can get the control correct. There we go. Okay, so this is not as good, admittedly. Yep, too early. It's a great game, it really is. I think this is one of the early platforms for it as well, so it's worth playing. I love the way it draws in the screen in that circle. It's brilliant. Anyway, on to another game. And here we are. Yes, it's Elite. A classic game. And this is the Apple II implementation. Probably not unexpectedly translated across, of course, because it's a 6502 processor, the same as the BBC Micro, so it kind of makes sense. Yeah, obviously we're using composite graphics, so the colours are going to be a little odd. Yeah, new commander. Oh, blimey. Default Jameson. Yeah, there we go. And right, let's give it a start. One thing you do have to remember with ooh, nice. One thing you have to remember when you're playing on this machine is that if you don't have the caps lock on, then the keys won't be registered. It does kind of, a lot of the games expect caps lock to be on, which is interesting, certainly. Let's do our usual thing of trying to find the space station and just firing upon it, of course, because, oh no, back up. Is that the wrong key? I haven't got the wrong key there. There we go. Yeah, it's that key. It's S and X for the axis, and less than and greater than for your. Right, there we go. No, we're back on the planet again. Have we managed that? Oh, there we go, because we're right there. Right, so. Oh, we crashed into it. Never mind. There's some 3D objects. It's elite. Right. Well, it's a nice little machine. It's very compact. I really like the styling. I really like how it looks, even in its slightly yellowed condition that mine's in. It's not too expensive to buy now, especially not when you compare it to the other two models, such as the GS, obviously. But it does have, obviously, a few drawbacks to that. The expandability really isn't there. You can get external stuff, but that's slightly rarer than the internal cards, although they're not exactly commonplace. And you can't... and the RGB port is not trivial to find a cable for, so you are kind of stuck with composite, although, the composite's fine. You get a little bit of bleed, but it's okay. It's certainly not terrible. Yeah, I really like the 2C. It's a really nice machine. The build quality is pretty good. Obviously the 5.25 inch floppy drive is going to be an issue, but you can stick a Gotek in the external port. I mean, I guess you could probably stick in the Gotek in the internal, but it will require a little bit more work. So, yeah, there are options, and I do recommend it if you want an Apple II series computer. It's a nice one, especially when space is limited. Right. Well, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit like. If you really enjoyed the video, please hit subscribe. If you didn't enjoy the video or you have something else to say, then please leave it in the comments below. See you next time.